All right, I think we are good to kick it off. Let's go ahead and get started. Well, welcome everybody. This is our, gosh, I can't remember if this is our third or fourth K12 user group, third one for the year. So welcome, we're really excited. This is national. So we've got all kinds of school districts, charters dialed in from across the country. We're excited to have y'all here. Definitely in the chat, put where you're from if you haven't done so already. The chat will be used for kind of more just networking and discussion between you all. If you have very specific questions for the presenters or for the panelists, please put that in the Q&A. Allows it's a bit easier for us to filter as you guys are chatting in the chat. So use that Q&A specifically for questions for the panelists and the presenters. Here's a quick rundown of today's agenda. We do have it scheduled for 90 minutes. Might end a little bit early, but we have 3 presenters. We've got Southwestern City School District and team will be presenting 2 different presentations today. So very excited to see how they're using Tableau for standardized test scores and then for iReady diagnostics as well. And then we have a special guest from Tableau, Jessica Lyons. She's from our academics team, and she's going to talk about Tableau for teaching, specifically for K12. Those of you that are aware, we do have a Tableau for teaching. Basically, Tableau is free for students and professors in college, but we are trying to figure out how that will work in the K12 world as well. So very excited. Jessica has some great things to share for the direction that we're going. And then stay tuned for the end. We will have a couple of announcements, next steps, events to plug in the future, and potential raffle as well. And kind of as I mentioned, before this is our, I think, third, maybe fourth user group. But the reason that we're doing this is to bring you all together so that you can hear from other customers, from other K12 customers that are using Tableau, hear about their best practices, what are they doing, get ideas from them, and also potentially build your network so that you can reach out to people on LinkedIn and really lean on each other for questions throughout the year as you come up on maybe some challenges. And in the past, when we had in-person tugs and regional Tableau user groups, that was a great way for you to really up your skills and to lean on others in your region. So definitely hope to get back to that eventually. But for now, we've got this great virtual community going on. All right, and lastly, here are the introductions for your 3 organizers of the youth group. My name is Cassidy Macias. I do lead our education, our K12 team over here at Tableau. Also lead our nonprofit business. And I've been at Tableau about 5 years. And prior to Tableau, I was a former teacher and worked in ed tech for about 5 years as well. So really excited to be here. Stephanie.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Stephanie Henry. I'm a manager with the business analytics practice at Plant Moran and on this leadership team for this national tug. Our partnership with Tableau has continued through the years, supporting Tableau leading user groups such as this. I've been with the firm for 3 years, just over 3 years, but have been in this space for just over 19. We support clients all over the country, leveraging their data to stand up and create and implement their solutions, assessing your tools, developing roadmaps, supporting development of structures, data and reporting, mentoring, developing, and customized trainings. I truly enjoy helping clients all over the country be successful in their data analytics journey. I'm passionate about using Tableau. I'm in my 9th year with the tool, and my role within this group is just to facilitate and to help this community grow, not only their skill set, but their connections with their peer members of this group. And I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Thomas.
Thanks, Stephanie. Yeah, Thomas Price. I live in Atlanta, Georgia, and I work for Slalom. We are a IT consulting firm, but we do a lot more than IT. We work in strategy. We work in all sorts of different enablements when it comes to the technical tools. And we've done lots of work with various school districts, both at the higher ed level and at the K through 12 level too. I worked in education at the central office and at the state level prior to working for Slalom. I've been here for a couple of years now. but that was for about 5-6 years. And then at the same time, I've used Tableau for about 5-6 years. One of the things that always gets me really excited about these groups is I just think the ability to bring people together to, I think, float around ideas and kind of create this community across, at least across the nation, for us to share ideas for going forward and how we implement business intelligence and education is fantastic. I know at least whenever I was at K12, I recycled a few ideas that I got from these webinars or from a Tableau conference. So I hope y'all can equally share in that same methodology. And so I'm going to transition it to our main speaker today. I know he has a few people with him, but that's going to be Robert Kramer. So Robert works for Southwestern City School District. He has a couple of presentations we'll be going over today, but the first one that he's going to talk about is comparing standardized test scores to corresponding course grades and how they use Tableau to implement this in the school district. So Robert, without further ado, I will hand it over to you.
Thank you, Thomas, Stephanie, Kelly, Cassidy. It's a pleasure to be here today, and I really appreciate the opportunity to showcase some of our hard work here at Southwestern City Schools. So good afternoon to the East Coast. Good morning to points west. I do apologize that my voice is a bit hoarse today, but I spent 3.5 hours Saturday in South Bend yelling at a football game. It was an amazing game to witness, and Toledo gave it their all, but came up just short. So sometimes the good guys win, sometimes Notre Dame wins, right? But so bear with me, my voice starts to go more as this presentation goes on. I really don't know how teachers do it day in and day out, so props to them. Anyway, let me go ahead and bring up my PowerPoint here. Start the screen share. All right, there we go. Hopefully that's showing now. Thomas, is that everyone see the PowerPoint? Awesome, good to hear. All right, so anyway, today we'll be going over 2 different assessments-based Tableau dashboards. First up is, as Thomas said, the comparing standardized test scores to corresponding course grades. And as he also said, my name is Robert Kramer. I'm the data analyst here at Southwestern City School District. I've had the pleasure of working for 12 years now at Southwestern, first as the operations coordinator, then programmer, and now as the data analyst, all of those within our district's data center. Prior to my time here, I spent 4 years with a smallish engineering company in the private sector right around Columbus, Ohio here. So this has made me very process oriented in all that I implement here, and I do hope that that comes across in some of what you'll see today. Co-presenting with me today for the curricular aspects of this first portion of the presentation for this dashboard is our Executive Director of Secondary Education, Dr. Eric Shuey. Eric, would you like to take a moment to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Robert. My name is Eric Shuey, and yes, I'm the Executive Director with Southwestern City School District. I've been in the position that I'm currently in now for, this is my 11th year, but I came to the district as an assistant principal and then was a principal. Before that, I saw some people here from Baltimore, Maryland. That's where I originally hail from. I moved to Ohio about 15 years ago, but my entire family is right outside of Baltimore, Maryland. So shout out to you all from Baltimore. Tough loss on Monday. We'll get over it. But nice to be here. On Monday, we'll get over it. But nice to be here.
All right, thank you, Eric. So really, I'm here to talk about the how we did it, and Eric is here to talk about the why we did it and like what we've done with it since then. He's the curricular portion of this presentation. So, all right. There we go. So we're a pretty big school district here at Southwestern, both physically and in terms of numbers. Our district covers 119 square miles over much of the southwestern quadrant of Franklin County. We're based out of Grove City, but we cover numerous municipalities and townships, including a very sizable chunk of Columbus. We have approximately 22,000 pre-K to 12 students across 34 schools. That includes 16 elementary schools, 5 intermediates, 5 middle schools, 4 high schools, a career academy, an alternative school, a district preschool, and a Head Start center. So as you can probably guess, we have a definite need for handling large amounts of data. Our student information system is Infinite Campus. We migrated over to IC from ESIS after ESIS was purchased by Pearson and discontinued back in 2012. We've been very happy with everything that Infinite Campus has delivered so far to date. So we've also been handling data in Crystal reports since 2005, far predating Infinite Campus here. And we still use it today because if your goal is a form-like layout or a spreadsheet, Crystal reports still can't be beat. It's still wonderful for that. But then in 2016, Tableau came along here, and it was an absolute game changer. So in 2015, our curriculum department approached us asking about a data warehouse. They wanted a way to get a better handle on student data and just understand it better. Now, they didn't know exactly what they wanted, just that they wanted one. They didn't know all those details. Of course, that's why we're here, right? But since we didn't have a lot, that also means we weren't exactly sure on what we were looking for either. We sat through many vendor presentations. Some were decent, some not so much. And then finally, we heard about this data visualization product called Tableau that Infinite Campus had been working with a partner on integrating Tableau with IC. It was actually just a small article we happened to spot in Infinite Campus's yearly magazine. And so we requested them to come out, or at least online to begin with, and they did. Custom Computer Specialists, the company doing this integration, just blew us away with their presentation, and we were immediately sold. The integration between Tableau and Infinite Campus is two-way. So there is data communication going on in both directions, both to and from Infinite Campus. It's integrated in so many ways that a user wouldn't even know they're using a separate product if we didn't tell them. And of course we do want to, laud Tableau and what it's done for the district. It is within the IC browser window. IC is of course browser based, like many products anymore these days. There's no separate login for the user. Access to each dashboard is actually controlled through Infinite Campus, just like any other tool right of IC. The speed is just fantastic since it also utilizes Infinite Campus's own data warehouse product. Although it doesn't have to. I mean, we can pull from anywhere else too, of course, even the live database or even some other data if we want to look at personnel or HR data. It's personnel or payroll data, I should say. Our data warehouse is also, it's automatically updated with the latest data nightly. So all of our data is no more than 1 day stale. And of course, if we need to, we can pull from live, then it's live, right? As with many data warehouses, we create views in SQL to be flattened into tables overnight frequently. This can really just allow us to have huge amounts of data that can be accessed at incredible speeds within Tableau. CCS, Custom Computer Specialists, even provided several dozen canned dashboards to get us started in learning Tableau, mostly through modifying and reverse engineering some of these dashboards. I mean, now, of course, we kind of can make most of them on our own. We don't use them, but boy, it was just a great way to help get us started. All right, so here's just a quick view of what Tableau looks like in Infinite Campus with a super simple dashboard. This just shows all the school districts in Ohio on a map. Yes, we have that many school districts in the state. There's like, I think 613 now. It's ridiculous. But anyway, we have a lot of school districts here. And like I said before, like so many other student information systems and other products, you can see that IC is browser based. On the left is Infinite Campus's indexed navigation. It's within that navigation that we access our Tableau dashboards. Currently, Infinite Campus is in a transition of kind of their new look. It's even better. That's still being in the midst of being rolled out. Some of you may have that and think that looks different. Like, yeah, you could be using the new one there. Over on the left-hand side, their index, it's a hierarchical structure. So sorting the dashboards into what are essentially folders makes finding the dashboards you want easier. So we definitely had our share of challenges when we initially started ramping up with Tableau. When we first adopted Tableau, we only had 2 employees available for development. And to be honest, our plates were already pretty full. So it was difficult, not just to find the time to develop dashboards, but even learn how to develop them. We've never used this before. Sure, we've used other products. We've used, we've definitely, done a lot of coding and we've done a lot of different stuff, but we've never done Tableau. So how do you solve that? Really, like many times, sometimes it's just better to be lucky than good. We had another employee within the department retire, snagged a stellar new hire, freeing up a bit more of at least my time to focus on dashboard development. But, I still obviously have many other things I have to work on, and as does my coworker. Another set of issues that we faced was expectations. In addition to the initial problem of time, we had to make sure administration understood what Tableau was and what it wasn't. Some even spoke of it essentially being magic. And while it is really amazing, we had to explain to them that it does what it does because we've told it to. It's still a tool, just like anything else, but it's just a super cool one, right? So to balance that, we've kind of said Tableau is not magic, but maybe just slightly enchanted around here to let them know, like, yeah, it's pretty cool, but there's still a lot of work involved. To describe Tableau and its borderline appearance and purported magical abilities from some departments around here. Some people wanted a single dashboard to be the be all end all where data could be accessed if drilled down enough. We had that request one time, like, well, maybe if I click on this, then the behavior could come up and attendance and everything else. So we had to kind of bring them back a little bit, explaining how, while we can certainly bring a lot of different data points together into a single dashboard, there will be different dashboards to tackle different questions. So we had to dodge scope creep several times in the beginning. We had to also learn to, and this is with many other projects around here too, to tease out the details of what people were looking for. Sometimes they might say, I want a behavior dashboard. Well, that's great. But what would you like in this dashboard? What type of data would you like? What is the, this is the best question I usually have, is what is the question you're trying to answer? And that can give us specific direction to go in on those. So that kind of helped us get off on the right foot on many of these projects too. On top of that, with limited human resources, prioritization was an issue because development was, of course, slow in the beginning. So which projects should get priority? Ultimately, this did culminate in the establishment of monthly Tableau update meetings. Here, our team can discuss with the deputy superintendent. It's a small team, 4 of us from this department, the deputy superintendent, assistant superintendent of curriculum, and the data and testing coordinator, all about on our accomplishments from the past month, the new requests or enhancements that they've received, that we've received, and the logistics of future rollouts. It really made things go a lot smoother. Those meetings have proven just invaluable to keep everyone on the same page. And at over 5 years later, we still hold these meetings monthly to this day. So if you're not already holding such a meeting, I do highly recommend your district holding one. It's been wonderful here. All right, so that was kind of like an overview of the district, kind of how we got to where we are today. And now I do want to try and get into the actual dashboard. All right. So this all started from a quick question at the end of a meeting, of an unrelated meeting, actually, from Dr. Shuey. And he asked me, hey, Robert, can you run me that report that compares AP scores to the corresponding course grades? And I remember I just stared at him for a second and I thought, and I was like, I don't think that report exists. That's not a thing, but you know, it's a really good idea, and not just as a report, but I think it would make an even better dashboard. So much better than a traditional report. So off I ran once Eric gave me that great idea. And he actually, we had a discussion about that just the other day, and he told me that he had actually done it himself. He pulled them independently and tied them together, which is awesome. But now, of course, we can have them all in one place and save people a lot of that manual labor. So I guess the idea would just be, you know, now you can pull them together and really, as usual, with the unwieldy amount of data involved with assessments, especially when you're combining with course information, it was just a great opportunity for Tableau to really showcase what Tableau can do, and was able to come to the rescue. So let's take a look at the dashboard, and we will jump into a live dashboard in a moment. But before we start into the dashboard, just a quick note. While the aggregated data that you see in these screenshots is real, the aggregated data, I want to stress that the individual student and teacher data is anonymized. And you can probably see they have fake names of, you know, last name, first name, and teacher, and randomized student IDs. These are not the real IDs either. But like I said, it's still real. It's the aggregated data is real, and that can hopefully be useful to people and for us too, to be able to navigate through it in this presentation. So onto the dashboard. The first area of the dashboard that I hope your eyes were drawn to, is because this is the most important part for us, is the bubble chart in the lower right corner. This really is the absolute meat of the dashboard. Here you can easily see the distribution for all AP tests for our district as compared to their respective course grade scores within our district for every school year since the dawn of using Infinite Campus in the 12-13 school year. Like with many Tableau dashboards, all of the graphs can also act as filters when selected. So if you wanted to see the bubble chart distribution for a specific school or test or year or teacher or student, you can just click on them and it will then filter the bubble chart down here and everything else too, actually, all the other graphs. But so let's talk about these graphs. It's kind of awkward, right? They're in the negative. We don't normally see bar graphs going into the negative, but in this case, it actually made a lot more sense than them going into the positive. But let's talk about what the negative numbers mean. So the numbers that you're seeing, the number is determined by taking a student's AP score, 1 through 5. That's pretty normal, right? And then subtracting their course grade. So where an A is a 5, a B is a 4, a C is a 3, a D is a 2, and an F is a 1. Then we take the average of all test scores minus course grades for each graphical breakdown, and that's the number. So it's a matter of how much higher they're scoring on the AP test than the course grade, which of course typically, you know, it's going to be a negative number, right? Admittedly, AP tests are usually going to be harder than the class they're in, which was why the negative made sense. If you did positive means good things, right? Look at that. Look how much worse my kids are doing on the AP test than the course. That's not a good thing, right? So they're going to be negative, and that is, you know, that's just it though, right? You know, while it's not unexpected that nearly all of the scores would be in the negative, with students typically getting a better course grade than AP score on average, you know, they shouldn't be too far in the negative, right? This is where a principal or other administrator can start to dig down. If they do see that, they can look into that. Something else to kind of point out on this tour here is, you know, what's up with the graph thickness? You probably see the width of the graphs vary. They're all over the place. So since we're measuring averages, we thought it would be important to somehow show the number of students represented within each average as well. So that's where the thickness of each bar graph comes into play. How wide the bar is represents the number of students, while the length represents the average difference between AP score and final course grade, what we're attempting to measure. All right, so let's go ahead and, oh, one too far. Let's go check out the dashboard live in action in Infinite Campus. So let's bring that up here. All right, so now we are live in Infinite Campus. We're going to navigate here. Like we talked about, it's a hierarchical structure. And we're going to go under Data Center, Tableau Dashboards. Now, normally we would go to, like, say, attendance dashboards or behavior dashboards, but that has live student data in there. And I don't want to go to jail, so we're going to go to some public ones that we have set up for this. All right, so the first thing that I hope, I'm going to buy a little more real estate here. There we go. So the first thing that I hope you noticed is the speed. Part of why we're able to ensure good speed with this dashboard is a view we created via SQL that ties together the AP test to the corresponding course grade. This view's flattened every night into a table in the data warehouse so that Tableau doesn't have to do any of that heavy lifting by joining any of that data together. Joining together the tests and the courses could slow it down just a little bit. We just want to create the best user experience possible. And we'll look at that setup after diving into the dashboard. And so as we poke around and select a few of these to filter it down, we can see some interesting bubble graphs that emerge by looking test to test. So I could click on, say, you know, this one right here, which sits pretty low. And you can see how the bubble graph will change. There we go. And you can see what's represented by that. Like right here, for example, kids who get a B and a 1 within this test, which, by the way, is the AP US history test. We had 21% of our kids score a B in the course, but a 1 on the AP test. Now, of course, what do we do with that? That's the stuff Eric's going to address, right? I am not a teacher, and I did not stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night, so I'm not going to pretend to be one either. But Eric can answer those questions, and we can continue to drill down on here and see, okay, well, you know what, this had some variance in different years. It looks like it went kind of down, but then it got better, right? So maybe we could drill down a little further on 2021 and then see that, oh, it did get a little better here. Here went up a little bit, but you know what, that this got a little smaller. That's a good thing. I'm not sure. I hope it's a good thing. And then we can even drill down a little further if we wanted to look at, say, specific teachers even. So you can get down that deep and say, well, how did this teacher do this year? And you can see that teacher's, you know, distribution now on here and see how theirs look. And you could look over the years and see how the teacher has done over the years. Looks like this teacher, you know, it improved a lot this year, which, you know, isn't I don't know, at the end of the 1920, a few things happened there, and but that's the stuff they can kind of dig down into and see what that means for that teacher, what that means for the building. And in fact, as I reset this here, just to kind of show off some of these, we have like down here, this is where I think the thickness can come into play. Like, whoa, what's this? This is interesting. It's the other direction, but you mouse over and it's one kid. And of course, every kid's important, right? But this is, you can pretty quickly look into that and see it's not a horrific trend that's happening in a specific class where kids are doing, fantastic on the AP test, but getting beaten up in class on the course grades. So that's just kind of the quick, 5-cent tour of the dashboard live and in campus. Does anyone have any questions so far, Stephanie?
Yeah, I can open up some questions. We have a few
Sure.
here in the box. I'll read them out loud to you. So
Sure.
this first question comes from David Ogden. So when you state that Infinite Campus and Tableau have two-way communications, does that mean that changes made in Tableau will update your warehouse, such as new calculated fields?
Excellent question. So no, it does not mean that. And we certainly wouldn't want it to do that either. What it does mean, though, is like in many dashboards here, and I don't recall if this one's set up for this, but I could, and I don't want to select them because I could actually end up bringing up their names, and I don't want to do that. But on some of these, what you can do on many of these dashboards is you can select a group of kids. Let's say I narrowed this down to like 20 kids, right? I can actually highlight these 20 kids and get a button to appear at the top. I can then transfer those over to an ad hoc in Infinite Campus. And now I can look at those kids individually. And then I can kind of dig down as infinitely as I want. I can have a list of those kids. I can click on the kids, and then I can see individual data on them, or even run reports. It'll save it as an ad hoc, which is kind of a saved filter in Campus. And I can use that to then pull up any reports within Campus I may want to. And vice versa, I can make some ad hocs within Campus, groups of kids, and then introduce that as my own special filter. So even an end user, not just me, right? So if I'm Michael Nestler, who we'll meet later at the principal at Hayes Intermediate School, if I have this group of 30 kids, maybe they're my watch list. I've determined these kids I want to really keep an eye on them. I feel like I can help them. These 30 kids, I could then use that filter within here and then see just how they're doing on a particular dashboard, whether it be obviously AP wouldn't make sense for intermediate, but maybe Ohio standardized tests. Ohio State tests, I could take a look at those. So I hope that answers your question. So there is two-way communication, but no, we do not let them write back to the database. That's scary. So no, we do help telling our users it is read only too, so they know they can't really mess anything up in Infinite Campus, so they can feel free to play around.
Awesome, great. So the next question also comes from David. So research suggests that most important information of the dashboard should be on the upper or left side of your dashboard for left to right readers. What might be different in your dashboard if you move the bubble chart to the left?
That's a good question. We probably could, and maybe we should. I'll tell you, 2017 Robert is not as good of a designer as 2021 Robert. This one's actually 4 years older. And this is the road we went down. It's not a bad question. Maybe we would stand to improve the feel of the dashboard or the flow by doing that. I mean, maybe at this point, it's one of those, well, we already made this. This is what everyone's used to. Would they like it or not if we moved it? But that's a great question. I think you might be right that could be beneficial by doing that. So yeah.
I do the same thing. Always looking back on old dashboards.
Mm-hmm. What was I thinking, right? Yeah.
Awesome. So, and then I think there was one in chat. So wondering if you have something similar for like IB corresponding course grades or IB exams.
We actually don't do IB here. So we don't have that. We do have other tests though. This was just the first one we made. So this kind of showcased it. Plus AP is a little more limited and it's nationwide, right? So that's why it made good sense to present this. But we do have two other ones for state tests. We have end of course exams for 7 different courses at our high schools. And those are, so there's one for that. It kind of compares the classes the kid took to that course. And also our Ohio State tests, which are administered to third graders through 8th graders, I believe, in the state. And they are then compared to who their teacher was for that specific subject. So yes, they do exist for other ones, but we just don't do IB here.
Got it. What data warehouse do y'all use?
It's actually a product from Infinite Campus. They provide that natively. Now we do, it's housed here on site because we're cloud hosted for Infinite Campus itself. Or Infinite Campus data lives up in the cloud, but our data warehouse is then transmitted locally. It's all downloaded overnight, unpacked, and done every day. So it's here locally on a server that we have, but Infinite Campus, we own the server, but Infinite Campus maintains much of that process.
Got it. This is from Brian. Who's the intended audience for this dashboard? Is it going to be our teachers? Are y'all pushing this out to admin only? Yeah, who's this supposed to be really digested by?
Sure, great question. So it is used at the district level and at the building admin level. So they can then run that. Now, what they can do is they could drill down to a single teacher, right? And then they could provide a printout for maybe a conversation they want to have with that teacher, like, hey, you are just killing it here. Like, you're doing amazing. Maybe you could help work with some of those younger teachers who just aren't quite there yet. They're not used to the AP exam yet. They're not used to with that. And I think Eric can probably, when we get to his portion, can probably speak to that a little bit more. But so ultimately, the teachers can be the audience, but it's going to be after it's filtered down through administration. So school administration and district administration at the moment is where it's used.
Got it. And this is a kind of a follow-up, but how has it kind of helped influence any policy or practice decisions at the district or school level?
So Eric, do you want to go ahead and answer that question, or did you want to wait until your portion of this? It's your call.
No, that's fine. I mean, this kind of goes into my portion, and that's a great question. So those policy decisions typically are more of administrative guideline decisions. And when I look at data, one of the things that's really important is to having somebody like me and somebody like Robert collaborating back and forth on the development of these things. Robert speaks IT perfectly. I speak curriculum very well. I don't speak IT well. And, Robert doesn't understand all the ins and outs of curriculum. So together we do kind of make a complete package when it comes to developing these types of dashboards. And what happens is it does start with a question. So for this particular situation, the first iteration of the question was talking about restrictiveness to AP courses and creating barriers for students to access AP courses. What type of students were traditionally accepted into AP courses? My question was why? Why are we creating these barriers? And the responses I got from the teachers made me want to look a little bit more deeply into exactly what was going on. I like to use data to dispel myths and to kind of shine a light on the truth of the matter. And some of it is just misconceptions that can easily be dispelled by walking through exactly what Robert came up with.
Awesome. And then, so I think this might be back for Robert, but how do you standardize what you make for all 34 schools that y'all support?
Okay, so with this here, this is only actually going to be used by 5 schools, right? This is all high school, but we make sure the same dashboards are available to all the schools. That's what's kind of inherently nice about this, whether it be this dashboard or one that is actually used by all 34 schools, like maybe a demographic dashboard. When they're released through Infinite Campus, we can control who has access through tool rights or through calendar rights. And that's actually what we'll kind of touch on the second part of the presentation. This is, again, part of that two-way communication. So up here at the top of the screen right here, you can see it says all calendars. But you can choose specific, when you're at Infinite Campus, you can look at different years, you can look at different schools. And if we choose to, we can allow our Tableau dashboards to specifically be filtered by that. Now, this one's not. We don't mind that the high schools can see each other's data because we want them to work collaboratively with one another. Sometimes there might only be 2 high schools that offer a specific AP test because there's just not enough interest in there too. So in this case, they can, again, because it's only the administration that's looking at this, and they can work with one another. But on something, something that we just don't want that, we would make sure that when you lock into, say, Alton Hall Elementary, unless you have access to Alton Hall Elementary, you can't see their data out in the school level. So some of our dashboards will have two versions of. Again, we'll see that in the next one. There's a district level version that would be used for just the district level administration. And then we would have a school level version. So that way a school can only see schools which they have access to. Typically just their own, right? Some of them might be able to see multiples, like our Career Academy, because they work with all 4 high schools, but most of them can only see one, so then they can only see that. So it's inherently standardized. We really aren't gonna, say I get a call from a middle school that says, hey, I want you to make this dashboard just for me. That's probably not going to happen, right? But they might just have a great idea, like, hey, maybe you only want to use it. Maybe the other middles would have some interest in that. Let's try to find a way to make it generic enough that everyone can use it, but useful enough that everyone gets something out of it. And that's where we're going to standardize it. We're not going to get into one per school. We just don't do that.
Yep. Awesome. Then this comes from Jonathan. So how do you know what you're filtering on? If you're filtering by school or filtering by AP test or by course?
So when you over here, you can see the schools, and if I mouse over, I can get further information. Like, we all know what CCHS means in this district. There's no one that doesn't, right? You guys may not, but it's Central Crossing High School. So I click on that, and now I can filter by Central Crossing High School. And then I can go over here. The AP tests are abbreviated. I get that, I don't have all those memorized, but there's only so many. So you can go pretty quickly to find, oh, wait, there it is. I want chemistry. And I can click that and just keep going down. And again, normally a teacher's name is going to be displayed, a student's name is going to be displayed, and they can then just drill down. So that's how we know what we're looking at, since we don't take advantage of the filtering at the top of this dashboard.
Awesome. And I think we can transition to the next part of the presentation, but thanks again. Once again, everyone, just keep popping those questions in the Q&A box.
Okay. So we have what, 7 minutes left until the next one's supposed to begin, right? But I'm only taking time away from myself at that point, right? So, oh, lovely, it restarted. Let's make our way back here. There we go. Okay, so let me try to keep moving then. So the data, this is the data source setup. I talked about this a little bit earlier, so just to look under the hood a tiny bit. So every object you see here with a leading SWCS is a view that we wrote. There's only a couple of them on here. Remember, we're working out of the data warehouse, so these are now all tables we're dealing with. They were views when we wrote them, they're views in live, but then they become tables in the data warehouse overnight. The ones without a leading SWCS are our native infinite campus tables, or in the case of individual, actually a native view to campus. They have their own as well. So we all know the expression, an ounce of prevention, right? We are huge proponents here at Southwestern of doing whatever we can upfront in SQL to get large swaths of data into Tableau, both into flattened tables and in a format that is going to be the most Tableau friendly. Again, these are not things that districts have to do. I don't want anyone leaving here thinking, oh my gosh, I have to do this work in SQL. Like, no, you don't have to. That's a route we've decided to go. I come at the data analyst position from a programmer's background. So I'm all about this, right? And we can increase the speed from it. That's the huge benefit, right? And that creates a better user experience. And even for larger projects, we will often boil down all the data we need to even a single view and just have it flattened down to a single table. And yes, this is completely foreshadowing to the next presentation. The performance of Tableau when we do this is just absolutely phenomenal. You can have so much data and have it come down and have it come at you so fast, even from lots of different areas. And why pick fights with Tableau that we don't have to? If you have all the data in the format that Tableau likes best, then let's get that data in the best possible layout for use in Tableau and let Tableau do what it does best. So like I said, this SWCS AP and course scores, this is the primary view of the dashboard. That's what ties together our course grades and our test scores. This Tableau starter pack is something we kind of decided on using for nearly all of our dashboards. And it just provides standard fields that we use in Tableau frequently, like date and time, which allows us to then kind of get that snapshot. We can tell people when the view was flattened. Like, this is all accurate as of last night at 7:45 p.m. when it finished. And that's nice because people a lot of times ask the questions early on, how accurate is this? How accurate is this? Like, it's always last night. Now it specifically tells them when it's accurate. Or if it's a live one, they'll know it's accurate as of that moment. And the other four are just standard campus tables or views that come with it, with individual being pulled twice, once for the student and once for the teacher. So SQL is our friend. At least it's my friend. I hope that it's many of your friends too. And briefly looking, this is that AP and SWCS AP and course scores view. And this is where we're creating that one row per AP test administration per student. We're also pulling in the final grade for the test that corresponds, final grade for that course that corresponds to that test. The code is not particularly long. And in fact, large swaths of it are just dedicated to tying together the course and the respective AP test. You know, that's specific to our district, right? Like here's our course number and here's our AP test code. And then even a big amount of it just for the select statement. So it's really, once you kind of dig into it a little bit more, it's not very intimidating, at least to someone who is reasonably versed in SQL code. And, you know, while the course, like I said, while the course numbers are Southwestern specific, the concept would work for many other districts, especially on the same SIS. So if you're on IC or anyone else, I mean, we are more than happy to share any code that we've written, whether you are on IC or not. And maybe you can copy and paste some of the code if you're on IC even, and then just make your specific modifications to your district. Or if you just want it for some reference, we're more than happy to share. All right, so I do want to pass it off to Eric and let him kind of run through his piece here. And then if anyone has any further questions for Eric or myself, we'll be happy to take them.
Yeah, and thanks, Robert. If everybody has a Robert, they would be doing a really good job. What he can do always amazes me, and it's like what I look at like the version of the complete human. Robert's the one that is mapping the human genome, and he's down to the DNA level, which I don't understand any of it. And he's talking about being enchanted in magic, and I did see him floating over his computer the other day, sprinkling dust on it. And I think that's how this all gets working. That's about as technical as I can see. So anyway, the dashboard. So when we come up with, a critical question that we're looking to find solutions to or answers to, typically I will call Robert and say, hey, let's talk about this scenario. I'm trying to figure this out, and come up with some things. Robert's come up with early, collaboratively, we've come up with early warning systems for students that are at risk. We've come up with students that are college career ready based on research-based best practices and criteria. And so anybody can go in and access these things to pull groups to have specific, very detailed conversation, whether it be teachers or students. So the AP question really did come up when I came into the district, and I kind of sat and watched, and I was wondering why certain students were not able to access advanced placement. And it was because, they're not gifted, or they haven't taken, these particular courses, or the teachers didn't recommend them. And I'm all about equity and access. And so I started looking at the data. And when I looked at the data originally, I'd have to get data from, for example, Infinite Campus grades. Then I'd have to pull College Board's data, and then I'd put them on a spreadsheet, cut and paste and do all this to then make some correlations. Well, then I couldn't really drill down, because if I had a student on the spreadsheet that I really wanted to look at more in depth, or a group of students, then I had to go back individually into Infinite Campus to get some of the demographic information and do all that stuff. So when I did this originally, it was taking me weeks and weeks and weeks. I do the same thing in a matter of an hour at this point. So that's one of the benefits. And what I've talked to Robert about is I need data that is, for all intents and purposes, autopsy data that I can turn in data for learning. I'm not interested that, okay, we have A's, B's, C's, D's, and E's, and then we have 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s, and 5s on these tests. I need to know what this looks like for the future, and how we can use the data that we currently have to see patterns, trends, and then to project to the future and make key instructional decisions. One of the things that I was looking at is, okay, so all these kids that, are AP appropriate versus kids that are not AP appropriate. The first thing I did was got some teachers to agree to bring in students that were not your traditional AP type students. I needed a test base and a subject experimental group. We have the control group already. So I needed to have a group of students that we could start looking at with taking the course and how they did on the assessments and how they did in the class. And really that's kind of where this started. And one of the things that I immediately noticed was the students that traditionally go into these courses are compliant. So they will get good grades. They turn in the work on time. They do their homework. They do everything that's required. They raise their hand. They volunteer. And we are all biased and we like that. We like compliant students. So I noticed there seemed to be compliance grading over mastery grading. And then that in turn turned into some professional development that I worked with our professional development about is, are we grading for mastery or are we grading for compliance? And so that's one avenue. The other avenue is if I'm a teacher, and this is a real example, I noticed in the data that Robert put together, one teacher had 25 students, 23 of the 25 got an A in the class, and 23 of the 25 got a 1 on the test. And I say A1s make great steak sauce, but terrible correlations. So how is it that that happened? When I looked at the other teachers teaching the same course, and this was a calculus course, I noticed nothing at all looked that way. So here we have a teaching issue. It doesn't seem to be a curricular issue. Every other teacher, it was more correlated. Those bubble charts were a little bit more correlated. Your Bs were getting 3s and 4s. Your As were getting 4s and 5s. Your Cs were getting 2s and 3s. And there were some obviously outliers or anomalies, but overall it was pretty clear that this was a teaching issue. Now, this is where we can pull the report, sit down with the teacher, and then start getting some more information. Tell me about your practices. Have you accessed the College Board recently? When's the last time you went on their College Board AP training sessions that they hold over the summer for a week at a time? Is that something you'd be interested in? We'd help you pay for that. And so we would have, you could have specific conversations with specific teachers about these practices. Also, tell me about your grading practices. How are all these students getting A's? And again, every teacher, in this case, we can treat individually based on the answers we get by having one-on-one conversations. It's different when you have anecdotal data than when you have actual quantifiable data in front of you. So some of that is how we utilize the data. And then for the US history, that was a perfect example of across the board, our AP US history and AP government scores were, and European history were terrible, just terrible. Well, come to find out, they are our teachers that have been with us the longest, that have been the furthest away from any new training. So immediately, every principal, I meet with the principals, my job is to work directly with the administration, they work with their teams, is to get the teachers professionally developed that need to be professionally developed. And you give it some time, and to be honest, these are some of the conversations are, for the last 3 to 5 years, we're seeing the same trends and patterns. Things aren't getting better. So it might be time to look for another teacher to put in the spot. And, that's the hard reality sometimes of what we have to do. The other component is this one teacher, this calculus teacher, before we actually had to move him out of that seat, which eventually did happen, we paired him with 3 of the other teachers from the other buildings to work on curriculum development, to work on lessons and activities, because the other teachers showed really well-aligned grades and outcomes from the AP tests. So again, I think all of these things kind of go into how we make decisions. Now, with that test group, what it came out to be is that the group of students that had no barriers did not quite as well overall on the AP test, But I would say, and again, I can only give I didn't run it through any statistical software. It was not statistically different in my professional opinion to exclude anyone. This was a policy change. We no longer block the ability for students to access AP exams. If they do it and they're not comfortable, now we give them an out and they don't have to take the exam. They'll get an honors credit, not an AP credit, but they still get the credit for taking a rigorous advanced course. And we've also removed the barrier that you have to be labeled gifted or taking, specific classes. We do want people to be prepared. We want to scaffold that learning for them, but we are not excluding students. We have a withdrawal policy that if they want to try something, take a risk. If they find out that it really is too difficult for them, we give them an off ramp into the gen ed course or into an accelerated course. So they do have, this data does have policy outcomes as well, implications. And the other way is true too. We have policy that is set by state often. And this, for example, our college career readiness dashboard that we have on here started off with state mandates for having student success plans for every student and tracking at-risk students in college career readiness. Well, we didn't have anything in place for that. So Robert and I sat and talked with and got teams of counselors, teachers, and administrators and came up with that structure. So that is a two-way avenue that often can be addressed by these Tableau vizzes. And it's really changed the dynamic of how everybody can access the data real time at the building level. So no longer am I the sole purveyor of all this information. Everybody is empowered to be able to get it on their own and share it with their specific staff when they need it, how they need it. And if there's something that we don't have that they need, all that comes through the executive directors so that we can say, no, we can do that some other way. That's not worth Robert's time. Or, okay, this makes sense. This is something every building is going to want to see. And then we talk to Robert and he meets with all of us. And over the course of several meetings, we get this done. And that's all I have.
All right, Eric, let me I see 4 questions. I'm going to try and quickly answer these because I know we're over, but at least I'm only over on my own time, right? So how did you teach people how to use that filtering in the report? That's actually the first, those, like we talked about those that CAN dashboards that came in. That's how they were set up originally. And in the beginning, that's how a lot of people were used to filtering. So that we actually had to teach them different ways to filter from that. Clicking on the graphs to filter was quite normal. The Tableau starter pack, it's simpler than that, than the demographic data for the schools. It's actually just a single row that has like today's date, time, current school year, current term, the start date of the school year, the end date of the school year. And that has become really valuable, not just for time stamping and date stamping our dashboards, but it's also become great for dynamic parameters. So we can default it to the current school year. What are the thoughts on using Prep Builder Conductor, making this happen? The only thing we really have looked into using that for is test import. That's kind of a pain, importing stuff from the state or from like ACT, SAT. So we've looked at maybe using it for that, but we've not yet pulled the trigger on anything with Tableau Prep Builder or Conductor. And why hard code course numbers? Do they ever change? No, not really. So that's why we did it. They haven't changed yet. Those 4 haven't. There's certainly new courses sometimes, but those are rarely aligned with a standardized test. And if they are, we know where they're at and we can find them in SQL and be able to change them easily and not have to go and say 1,000 dashboards. Yet another advantage of doing that in SQL. So last slide, then we'll go to the next one. Just simply saying that, we do love to share, right? So if anyone does want any more information on dashboards or Infinite Campus, SQL, anything we've done here, please feel free to contact me. Eric Shuey's email is also here too. If you have anything curricular to ask him. And I know we were gonna leave time for questions, but I think we've burned that time now. So unless anyone has anything else big, I think we'll move on to the next presentation.
So Robert, I'm just going to jump in here and just remind you got 19 minutes because we got to make sure that Jessica gets her time slot.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, I will hurry up here. So, all right. So the next one, we're going to talk about iReady now, right? So I've already introduced myself. I'm still Robert Kramer. Co-presenting with me now from the world of curriculum and using this dashboard in the schools is the principal of Hayes Intermediate School, Michael Nessler. Mike was instrumental in the development of this dashboard in that I need to know what the schools are looking to do with it and what is helpful from them. So Michael, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, this is my 21st year in education. I've been principal at Hayes now for 7 years, and we have really turned into data people at Hayes over that time, and Robert's been instrumental in helping with some of that. So I know we're short on time, Robert, so I'm going to turn it back over to you.
All right, got it. Okay. So similar to the first presentation, I'll just speak on how we were able to create this, and then Mike will get into the details of why we created it and what he does with it now that it's here. So it's a story, right? It all began with a spreadsheet, at least in my world. When I had a middle school assistant principal contact me asking for help with a Google sheet that he'd created. The spreadsheet he made, it was nice. It had student names, results. He'd already set up some conditional formatting to color code the result levels. The reason he even contacted me was just for the growth column and whether or not growth had been met. The logic to do that was admittedly a bit more complicated. And he was felt a little over his head. So he contacted me and asked if I could write the formula for him. So I said, sure. You know, like we talked about earlier from that question someone had about, well, do you guys, how do you keep it somewhere across schools? And I said, well, we don't create a dashboard for each school. And certainly if only one school wants this, we're not going to create a dashboard, right? And I assumed this was a very specific thing for him. He's a real technical go-getter. And so I made it and I went off on my merry way and I was done. But then I received a call a few weeks later confirming that I was wrong. This is actually something being used at multiple schools. So our curriculum department had become very concerned about the sustainability of these spreadsheets. And I get it. You have to add and remove kids, add their scores. It is a lot to maintain. I'm sure Michael does not miss that. There are multiple tabs in there too. If you guys didn't spot that, there was actually there's other tabs at the bottom, like for math, for reading, for 7th grade, for 8th grade. And it's just a ton to maintain. It really gets up out of control. So I was asked, what can we do to help? And it just screamed that there could be a dashboard solution. And there was, albeit a few parts did get more difficult than I'd anticipated, but we were off on our way. So same deal as last time. Aggregated data is real. Student teacher data is anonymized, randomized, and hence fake. And yes, there is individual student data you can see here, but again, you don't know who the student is. So there you go. So you should hopefully see a very familiar table jump out at you right in the middle. I just learned earlier, maybe I should put it on the left, but this is what we did. It's in the middle. And instantly see all 3 iReady results for the students and their growth. And you can also see that we have a single graph, a table, a student photo, which is just me, unfortunately, because I cannot show you student photos. Once again, the whole jail thing. And there are quite a few options on here as well. So let's go ahead and check this one out. Once again, in Infinite Campus. Again, like Stephanie said, trying to move quickly here, right? So I will speak quicker here. I apologize for that, but as she said, we're short on time. So one thing you may have noticed right there is we actually have 2 versions. I talked about that earlier. This is the district level version, but there is also a school level version that will respect calendars at the top so that Mr. Nessler cannot go in and look at other schools. He has his own school to worry about. He can't fix the other ones right now. So once again, hopefully you spotted that this was in fact a very fast dashboard to come up to. So let's go ahead and slide into last year's data because, well, we don't have any results for this year yet, right? So it defaults to this year, but we're going to slide back to last year. All right. There we go. So sticking with this, the spreadsheet, we've kind of migrated over into Tableau here. If you think about this, there could be multiple ways that you would want to look at growth too, right? Like you could look at growth from fall to winter. You could look at it winter to spring. You could look at it fall to spring. And in that spreadsheet before, those formulas would have to change each time. So working with the schools, they said that they would only ever look at one at a time. So easy, bam, we have a parameter, right? And it defaults based on, thank you, dynamic parameters, based on the time of year that we're in. So right now, fall to winter is the default, but we could do fall to spring and you can see the growth from the entire year. And pretty quickly, you can see everything update. And if it's white, that just means you can't determine it, right? Because if a student's missing even just one of those 2 tests, you cannot determine growth. So if we hover over one of these scores, there's quite a bit of data in this tooltip, right? So you've got demographic data in the first section, you've got homeroom and intervention in the second section, you've got the teacher for the subject, right there you see ELA, and then in the bottom section, you do have different statistics on the scale score, which is there visually, the color, which the reading result, which is indicated by the color, and then their OST prediction. So the OST is the Ohio State test, and that I told you every 3rd through 8th grader takes in the last presentation in the spring. And the iReady has a prediction range to say that if you score in this range, you will probably get this on the OST. You'll be proficient or advanced or limited. And that is something that they really can use to help see where students are at and where we need to get them to be in the spring. So as we look up, and also this thing that says ELA right here, this can change along with everything else. If you look, we're going to start looking above here. Now, if I change this to math, everything you see here is now changing to math right there on the fly. Because they said they typically don't ever look at both at once. And again, we only have so much room on a dashboard. So right here, there's nothing because they didn't take a fall. But if we were to change this to winter to spring, we'll have some math information. Up here, we do have a sort. So you can decide there's a few different ways you can try to sort this. If you want to do it maybe by their growth, you can actually sort by their growth as well. And it'll always key off of the growth that's currently being displayed. So there's winter to spring. All right. So something else that happens when you do hover over any student's name or score, over to the left of the table is their student photo and their student ID that appears. So since again, I can't show you student photos, every photo is hard coded to me. So I don't care if you see my picture, maybe you do, but there you go. It's me every time, but I can assure you when this is in our live or data warehouse, either way, if it's against real data, you'll see that student's photo come up. So then Michael Nestler, as he's going through, he can say, oh, that kid, all right, him, I've seen her, or I've seen her in the hall. Yeah, I know her. And then, always, it's really nice that, they're not all numbers, right? They're not all names. These are real kids. They have faces, and it's nice to kind of know who they are. As you look at the column immediately to the right of the table, you can see quite a few filters. These are all the ones based on the scores or predictions. Going one more column over to the right, these are your typical demographic filters. So kind of as per someone's questions before, this is kind of the opposite, right? So instead of filtering by clicking on the graph or on the person, we filter by the filters, by the drop downs. So that's where we want to try and go by year, by school type, by school, by any demographic, or even by giftedness. All right, again, I know I'm flying through here, but I took too long on the last one. So next, we're going to check out the graph. So in the beginning, like in a lot of our dashboards, we had a lot of graphs. People are like, well, I want to look at all these different graphs. I want to see by economic disadvantagement, or I want to see by gender, or I want to see by special needs, or whatever it may be. But we figured out that takes up too much real estate. There's only so much room on a dashboard. So we've now created these dynamic graphs where we can decide how it's going to look. So you can actually change what's being measured or the color of the graph, the coloring. So right now, let's just go ahead and change this graph measure to economic disadvantagement. And now instead of the growth across the bottom, which is what we were looking at is how many kids had what growth, now you can see here's the stacked bars for no, they're not economically disadvantaged, or yes, they are economically disadvantaged. And you can see that breakdown. That might be useful to Mr. Nestler. I'm not sure. I'm not here to tell him what's useful, but I'm going to give him all the options and he can pick which ones he wants and which combinations and make that graph whatever he wants it to be. So finally, we have a heat map of the different result sequences. So if I'm going to go back over to reading, because unfortunately with math, we don't have a fall, right? So if you go over to reading, excuse me, you can see all the different result orders. So these kids got kind of the color sequence of dark red is 1, light red is 2, yellow is 3, light green is 4, dark green is 5. We can kind of see how all those different sequences, how many kids are in each one of those sequences. Okay, so again, I'm just going to have to, and the parentheses means they had no score, because also you have null values as well. All right, so I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint. We'll just save the questions for the end, unfortunately, because I know we need to keep moving. If we do have time, we'll answer them. If not, we'll have to answer them after the fact. The data source setup in Tableau. Let me go ahead and present here again. Thank you for going back to the first slide. That's exactly what I wanted. So we'll go ahead and keep moving here. There we go. Okay. Ta-da, there's our data source, right? We talked about that earlier. It is a single table. It's a single view that has been tableized overnight. And that's where we're getting that speed. That was a lot of data on there, right? For a lot of kids from a lot of years. and we were able to make sure that that is at a good speed. It's at a good clip. It's first world problems, right? Unfortunately, we have people who that took 60 seconds. Like, do you have any idea what it just gave you in 60 seconds? All right, I'll make it faster. So that's where we kind of end up in a lot of these scenarios. Our SQL relationship status, I said it, this one, it's complicated. This did a lot, right? Now you have everything it does pull in demographics and stuff. It's not just the data like we had in the for the specific topic we're tackling. It has everything in there, including a student's name, a teacher's name. So it was admittedly around 500 lines of SQL to do. I'm not going to display that, but I'm happy to share it if anyone does want it. We used 3 different functions. I'm not going to get too far into that again, but I can tell the OST results. There is no formula to figure those out. That upset me greatly. So there was nothing you could do other than kind of brute force that through with 180 possible outcomes. So a lot of case statements for that. That was unfortunate. I didn't like that part, but we did it. So the trouble with growth, this was the hardest part of it actually, which I'll tell you, I don't know if anyone's ever dealt with this before, but these 3 columns, piece of cake. Try making a 4th column on something that keys off of different data and has a different coloring structure. Oh my gosh, it is not fun. It involved 4 different dual axis columns and a lot of Googling and experimentation. Maybe some of you guys are experts and you're like, I know how to do that. Well, I'm intermediate probably, and it took me a little bit of work to figure that out. So we got there. It works. It's great. And I have another tool in the arsenal now. So not too bad there. I think I left 7 minutes or so for Mr. Nestler to go ahead and start speaking to his curricular piece.
Unmute now. So like Robert said, this started as like a principals meeting and everybody's like, hey, I'm doing that. I'm doing that. I'm doing that. Oh, we need to find a different way to do that. It's much better because now I can have a conversation with another principal because our spreadsheets are looking the same when we go to that Tableau dashboard. I don't have my spreadsheet, which maybe has a little bit different twist on it than his. So it creates a lot more chances for us to be able to have common conversations in our middle level. That's 10 buildings, but I believe elementary principals have access to it, right, Robert?
Yes, that is correct. It is K through 8 has access.
Yep. Again, it is really easy to find cut scores. This was a question that was in there, so I'll just kind of address it as we're going through. Looking at rolling out for a teacher dashboard, but how it looks right now is myself as an administrator, I would group together an ad hoc that would have the students that we want to track or look at their data over time through this. And then I would use that ad hoc to create a list for the teacher as we're sitting down and having our data meetings throughout. So our RTI team used it a whole lot for that. Robert, I don't know if you can go to that next slide. So this was the growth monitoring, and this is how we use the tool. And I think it's how a lot of people who have the iReady tool use it. So we had a lot of students who were already 2 or more grade levels behind coming in as we're looking at this. So we had students making it on their first try. So that was that fall to winter view. And then 31% of the students made their stretch growth, which if you go through and know that the people who work for iReady would tell you that that is meeting their standard. We're obviously working to go above that. The 78% who met their typical growth was way above what they wanted through there. And then the ability to track students throughout, are they on target, are the interventions that we're putting in place working, is how we're using that dashboard on a daily basis. So a couple of people in the chat had asked about some of these could be accessed on the iReady internal dashboard, and you are correct. There are some of these things on the iReady internal dashboard, but what Robert was speaking to earlier is I would be spending 5 minutes here, 15 minutes here, 20 minutes here, going through each individual student. There wasn't a way in iReady that allowed me to grab a group of students very easily across the entire building. This dashboard allows me to be able to grab all of those students very quickly that I want. And well, you saw like maybe 10 minutes if I'm really filtering down. I don't know if we want to open it up to some more questions that are in there. I know we've got a couple minutes left.
Yeah, I see a couple on here real quick. I think did you answer, Michael, can you see the Q&As?
Yes.
Okay, do you want to tackle the first one right there, or did you already? The iReady does not have a histogram display in their dashboard, so we created one too, like Southwest. I guess that's not really a question, that's a comment. Okay.
It is. We like it. It's much easier to view and look at.
Okay. Do you create your own documentation for staff on how to use this? What does that look like? This is actually a very new dashboard. We just created it at the very end of the spring last year. Yep. So not yet. I guess I'd wonder, it's a smaller team. So I think when it's just the administration at the moment looking at that, their supervisor has them in, the executive director of the middle grades, and says, hey, look what we have. This is how we're going to use it. And it's kind of personal one-on-one, right, Michael?
Yeah. And usually what she'll do is like either, I think Betsy or myself, another principal, we're kind of two people who Robert was calling a lot to ask questions about how would you use this? What would you do? Our executive director would ask one of the two of us to say, hey, can you present this to the group of 10?
Let's see. So that one's answered. Are you easily able to pull student photos into your dashboard because of the integration with your SIS? So the way we do the photos is actually, that's a new thing also. We have Infinite Campus just finally released a process by which we can work to download the photos nightly to a local server. We cannot tie into those photos over Tableau directly in the cloud. We need to have it local. So because it's local now, my coworker, the other guy who's able to do some dashboard, but just doesn't have as much time to do it, he's a much better web programmer in that I'm not one. And so he was able to create a very, very simple web page. It's actually what you're looking at when you see that student photo, with a parameter being the person ID. That's passed in, and then that web page is rendered, and that web page can access more easily the local photo here for that student, or really anyone. I mean, any photo in campus, even myself, as evidenced by seeing my face on there today all day. So yes, there you go.
The next one on there, we don't have a separate dashboard yet. Right now, I don't think we have one that needs to look at on grade level, below grade level. We're using that to look at the 3 points throughout the year. So don't have a need yet, but that doesn't mean that one might not present itself a little bit later. And that's when I would call Robert and go, hey.
I have another project for you. Yeah. Okay. How are you getting data out of iReady nightly? I don't recall an automated export process. You're correct. We're not getting data out of iReady nightly. We're getting data out of Infinite Campus nightly. So once we receive the iReady data locally, Marcus, the other Chestnut, he's the other my partner in crime down here. He's the test import. He is the test import wizard, and he then uses Infinite Campus's test import wizard to load it in. Now, as soon as we receive iReady data, he gets a call every 5 minutes after that. When's it loaded? When's it loaded? When's it loaded? But then that very night, everything will be live. So that's kind of the great part, right? Like he'll get it loaded that day. It does have to that night. The view has to be flattened, and then everything will be in the next day. So once we receive it, he loads it, and the next day it's available. So it is very quickly available to our schools. I think I also saw some people asking about wanting to see code or anything else. Please reach out to me. My email is on the screen right now. If you have any more curricular questions, Mr. Nestler's is up there as well, as was Eric Shuey's. And we can go through email or even chat on the phone if you prefer, and we can run through anything. Any more questions? We're right at time. We made it up.
That's awesome, Robert. So thank you so much, and to the team, to Eric and Michael, for sticking with us and sharing that extra feedback. It's always nice to kind of hear how it's used. I know that many of us sitting in our seats, we have those assumptions and we have small check-ins, but to really hear how it's being leveraged and the impact that it's making on your workload as well as the students is what's most important, and why most of us do what we do. So we appreciate your time today. Again, we will be sending out links to the YouTube recording of this and any additional links. And so we'll be able to pass on Robert's information as well in that post email. I'm going to transition it over to Jessica Lyons. She's with Tableau. It is going to talk about Tableau for teaching. So welcome, Jessica.
Thank you all for having me. I really appreciate it. So what I wanted to do is talk about Tableau for teaching and a little bit of my history. Personally, I usually don't like to talk about myself, one, individually, I don't like it, and two, culturally. However, I feel like with this group, it might be great to go ahead and share a little bit of the experience and my background. So I started off as a psychologist case manager. With that being said, I actually my niche was intake. So looking at assessment and intake and using that data to make decisions. I was a school board member. Then I became a district data analyst. So many of the things that you talked about was my everyday life. In addition to, and depending on the superintendent, assessment data and accountability coordinator. From there, I went to NWEA MAP, where I was an account manager. I also worked with the research team. And then I also taught at different universities, psychology, most of the time in the School of Education for college prep. The reason for me bringing this up is just my passion around data in general. So as everyone was talking about, is the different meetings and having the understanding around assessment literacy, but also data literacy, as we were talking about, hey, I'm making dashboards or whatever it may be, that some of the questions that come up, sometimes the reason why we might not be able to go there is because we're missing some of the data literacy pieces. So that is my love for data, research, assessments in general, because I do believe that it shares that critical thinking. It elevates voices, social justice, transformative leadership, as well as transparency and equity. So with that being said, we do know that data is one of the most valuable resources that we have. We're right now in a feeding frenzy. So we have so much data to consume that we don't actually have enough data analysts, strategists, or whatever the titles are to actually utilize that data. Recruiters have stated, and this is from a Forrester report, that recruiters are stating that the highest demand is for entry-level candidates with data. And these employers are desperate to find data-related skills. However, when we look at kind of the progression on that, what we noticed is that one, data literacy is starting, or data science programs are jumping across the nation, actually across the world. There are more and more data science programs that are being created, but even what is the segue into that? What we're noticing is that at the high school level, that one is underserved students pay the highest price for this. In addition to how are we preparing them? So in the high school level, we see that data science is actually absent sometimes in the curriculum. And we receive this data from the Office of Civil Rights, as well as Data Science for Everyone. I did a quick LinkedIn search on Tableau skills, just in general, for jobs who are looking specifically for Tableau skills. So we can see in the US, and EMEA and APAC. So this goes further into the fact that data literacy is something that is definitely needed across the world. And so that's why we have created Tableau, being on a mission for a more data literate world. So what is our objective? We are a philanthropic, we're on the philanthropic side. So as we said, all of our services and resources are free to educators. We're a small and mighty team who are here to assist you. And we really strongly believe that data is for everyone, in all departments, everywhere, in all communities, and that it really should be from pre-K all the way to high school. As Cassidy started off, this is new for us. So Tableau for teaching, we're just now kind of getting our arms kind of wrapped around the K12 space, and there are some reasons for that. So for Tableau for students, which students can get a license for free, however, they need to be the age of 16 or older. And I think you guys are well aware for the privacy reasons and things like that. But who are our audiences that we're serving currently? So right now, our main focus is higher ed. So we're looking at instructors who are teaching Tableau, but we've also have university clubs, higher ed and professional associations. So the American Accounting Association, we work with them, and several other associations. The higher ed curriculum management and consultancy teams, we work with them. We also have data kits, which is our early childhood, which I'll be sharing a little bit more afterwards. We have youth scholars, which is our K12 not-for-profit, and that's what I am talking about with you all today. We do also work with not-for-profit organizations that work like after-school programs or in the community. And then we also have K12 university sponsors such as UCube with Joe Bowler in Stanford. So Tableau for Teaching is free to educators. You can request an individual license. I've already put in the, I believe in the chat, I did already put the link in there. And so with the free educator license, this will be separate from your admin license. You can receive a teaching license. And in that you receive free desktop, prep, and e-learning. And that's the piece that is really big behind it, is that for your teachers in your building, is that they can actually utilize e-learning and use their licenses for free. The reason why I told about my background is because I really strongly believe that if the teachers are also, or other people in your buildings are learning that assessment literacy and that data literacy, they're learning these skills, it might just make it easier as we're having these conversations as far as what data do you want to see? What are your research questions? Because they may, they have that foundational knowledge and that theory knowledge. We have requests, you can do course software. So example being, currently teachers in the high school, sorry about that. I have dogs. My roommate seems to be a little upset right now. So with that being said, we do have educators who are utilizing it in the high school arena. And with that, they can actually decide if they want to teach to their students. So we do have software for that. So they can utilize bulk keys where they can download it into the laptops, or they can actually use Tableau online. We also have ready-made course curricula. And just to quickly go over, you can literally, if you have Canvas, it's already there, or you can always zip those files and upload them into whatever learning management system that you have. We have our own instructional designer who creates this curriculum for us. And then the big part about Tableau community is that we have a well-rounded community full of data enthusiasts who are there to help. I host virtual lunch and learns where instructors come together of all different fields. It is led by them, led by educators for educators, and created by educators, where we come and we just talk about methodology. So we'll have psychologists talking about how they use Tableau, mathematicians, College of Education, anyone who is interested can come and talk about how they utilize Tableau for teaching in the classroom. We also do have Tableau Public that we also really do recommend. And the reason for that is that the bigger piece is exploring data in all of these different social science areas. And you can explore the possible data through Public almost with any topic. So any subject area in your class, there typically is a visualization or something that you can look at. And so with that being said, I'll go ahead. The other piece that I want to talk about again is the Tableau for students before I close out, to be respectful of your time, is that students, again, 16 and older can get their own license. It would be great to get them in now, because remember, I just talked about with the Office of Civil Rights, those prerequisite skills, helping with those skills for those students to go on to college and career, because I did just see the beautiful dashboard on college and career readiness, that this can actually assist those students. We get them in the pipeline now, they get that free e-learning and they can ramp up those skills as soon as possible. So I just wanted to also share the Tableau for students. And then this was the Tableau Data Kit. We can actually work with you if you have after school programs or community. We will absolutely love to support in doing some activities or projects where we can do Tableau Data Kits as well. With that being said, I wanted to share just some comments from instructors from the K12 space. And this is what they said from Joe Bowler's program. Tableau for teaching makes data come alive. People talked about the SEL components behind it, the equity components behind it. But the bigger piece, it gives them a peace of mind that there's always great support. They have a community of people who are passionate. In addition to it's a powerful tool to allow students to explore, understand, and communicate better. With that being said, I really appreciate your time and I love being here. I did see many people from my former life. Darren is one of them. Hi, Darren. I'm so happy to see everyone and thank you for allowing me to be here, as well as allowing my office mates to kind of let their energy out as well. So thank you for that.
Jessica, there's a couple questions in the Q&A. If you wouldn't mind responding to those by just typing that answer, that will be awesome and amazing. Just as a reminder, a lot of people are asking for links. Cassidy's posting links in the chat, but we will also in that follow-up email include some of these as well. So you don't have to scroll through all of those. I'm going to transition it over to Cassidy. I'm just going to share my screen and pull this back up.
Awesome. Jessica, that was so great. Thank you. Absolutely love that you're on board at Tableau now and you're making a difference in the K12 space. So I think we've had a lot of interest and there just hasn't been a scalable way to do it. So hopefully all of you dialed in are bookmarking some of those links and have Jessica's contact information. And you know, if we can help you do anything in your district or your community, let us know. Just to wrap up, this is a great almost 90 minutes. Thank you again to Southwestern and Jessica and Stephanie and Thomas as always. We do have some upcoming events. So Slalom, where that's our consulting partner Thomas represents. They will be hosting a workshop in October. So be on the lookout for that invite. November is our big Tableau customer conference. We will have an education track, which means we'll have a couple hours of education content, including K12 and high ed. Also working on scheduling a K12 user group or meetup, similar to what we did last year. For those of you guys that attended last year, we had almost 1,000 people on our meetup last year in the morning. So hopefully we'll see some familiar faces at that one. And then you can kind of see the rest of the year and next year. We have another user group. The next one is slated for January, and then we'll run those quarterly. But November will kind of be our next big time to come together as users, so be on the lookout for that. And next steps, we'll be sending out a survey so that you guys can submit your feedback, give us if you have any topics, themes, anything that you want to see. Also, it gives you the opportunity to raise your hand to be a future speaker. We need more speakers. We would love for you all to share all the amazing work that you're doing with your peers. So please reach out and to Stephanie or Thomas or myself if you do have interest and you want to share. Stephanie, Thomas, any kind of parting words from you guys?
I just want to say thank you for all of those still kind of remaining on at the last few minutes with us. We truly appreciate your involvement, your participation with chats and with questions. We're hoping that this truly was valuable use of your time and you're making those connections with your peers all across the states. Know that this leadership team is here to answer those questions, to connect you with those who might be in similar situations as you. And so we appreciate kind of keeping up that communication. Thomas, over to you.
Yeah, no, just ditto. And then at the same time, really just if you want to present, I think it's always a fantastic opportunity to share great work that you've done. Please reach out to me, Stephanie, or Cassidy, and we're always looking for more presenters. But if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us as well. And these resources, they're fantastic, I think, for just sharing and asking questions to the entire community, including those that couldn't make it to the webinar today. So wish everyone a wonderful day and a great rest of your week.
Thank you, Thomas. And I did drop in the chat the Tableau conference. We'll send that out afterwards, but it is free, so register. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.